Hey, good morning, good morning. Friday morning, it's always a good day. So it's been about a week or so since I hopped on. I think the last time I hopped on, I was able to share a sunrise with you. Not able to give you that visual this morning, so my apologies for that. It's just me and my bald head and the bookshelf behind me. So I hope you guys are doing well on this Friday morning. I wanted to tee up something. So a couple phone calls and then I saw a couple posts that really triggered me yesterday. And I wrestled with it yesterday because it's something that's really easy. It's something that's really easy to kind of rest on past beliefs and to not really try to bump up against it and extract a little more to try to figure out what to do about it. And so it was the comment and a call like, hey, how do you deal with, or what do you do when, so there's a lot of annual, reviews going around this time of year, right? And those salary increases, those raises, those performance reviews are all coming up. And it's obvious that a lot of companies do it at the same time every year. And so, questions, and then again, saw a couple posts where it was like, hey, they're not even taking into account inflation, right? And I can't help but, and I get it. First of all, let me say, I get it 100%. I can empathize with that 100%. However, if our success, if your success is based upon a company's ability to hand you, right, or give you, to look at exactly what inflation is, and if the belief system is that they are responsible for giving you an extra whatever 2%, 4%, 8%, whatever that may be every year, if that is the belief system, then you're always going to be behind, right? And I tend to want to apologize for the harshness and the directness because I understand that it can rub, right? It can rub a little bit. And so what do you mean by that, David? So, when we think about organizations, right, and how they're structured, that especially over a specific tipping point, right? So when companies really get over that, 150 or so mark, then things change. And there's a lot of data, there's a lot of research around this about how companies and systems that must be in place when organizations reach certain sizes. Now, some of that depends on the services that they offer, the products that they produce, and those numbers might shift a little bit one way or the other, right? But for the most part, that 150 is like a breaking point. And so what I mean by that is that not, an organization's responsibility is not to necessarily keep up with inflation and then just do a mass, increase in salaries across the board. That, like, it just doesn't work that way, because then when things are better, like, do they take that money away from you? No, it's a standardization across time. Now, you think about, well, I should be rewarded for my tenure. Well, maybe. But here's what I think where there's more value to add, right? And I think that where the rub is like, hey, now I've got to go get a second job, right? Or I've got to go get a third job. And again, I think where the biggest value add could be is maybe a different way of thinking about this. First and foremost, again, if our success and our ability to provide for our families is dependent upon an organization's systems on how they pay me, then I'm never going to actually have the lifestyle that I want, right? And that if we don't take ownership over what our salary should be, but more importantly, what our value add is to an organization, the problems that we solve for an organization. And I've talked about this multiple times. Like, I get it. You're like, Dave, I've heard this 100 times. Oh, okay. But hearing it and taking action on it are two very different things, right? And so when we think about skills, traits, and behaviors, those three things that we've talked about in the past, is that if you've been in a role, like if you've been with a company for 15, 18, 20 years, that's awesome. Like there is a lot to be said about that. However, that always does a higher salary, right? Sorry, I got a little distracted by notifications there. Into higher salary, because if you're just going in and you're doing the same transactional thing every day, then you're of value to the organization. The problems that you're solving within that organization haven't changed, right? And so over a period of time, I would even argue that a lot of those type of roles are going to be automated, right? We've got to look for those additional problems to solve within the organization. If you've been in a role for 12, 15 years, and maybe you've changed from an admin to maybe you're in, maybe another type of role like that, but you're not an admin anymore, right? But you're still solving those very kind of transactional problems within the organization. You can't expect an exponential increase in your salary. Now, when you step back and you think about that role and you think about maybe, well, how could I do this role more efficiently or more effectively? Or how could I train others to do this role more efficiently, more effectively? Or how then in the evenings do I go home and I research about ways to automate certain specific aspects of my role? Well, then you start adding a different level of value to that organization, right? And so then you could, arguably, when you solve a problem like that, then you're more valuable, you add more value, you're solving a higher level problem for that organization. And will it just, the first time you do it, will they just write you a check for $1 million? No, they won't, right? Like it just doesn't work that way. However, instead of going and getting another entry level $15 job, $15 an hour job where you're just, doing some manual data entry, or you're providing this very basic, front level type problem. Look to solve higher level problems in the organization that you're in. Again, I would say that if you've been there a while, there's probably nobody around that's got the level of experience that you do. But if you keep showing up in that same job, looking to do the exact same thing and be rewarded at a higher rate, then that's just wishful thinking, right? You've got to look around and identify, how do I leverage my experience to add more value, to solve higher dollar items within the organization so that I am more valuable? And here's the thing, if you do that consistently, you're going to benefit yourself first, right? That you're going to learn new skills, new traits, new behaviors, right? You're going to challenge those old ways of thinking. You're going to challenge those, and you're going to challenge yourself to think a little differently and to look at problems differently that make you more valuable. Well, then guess what? If your value is not recognized there over a certain period of time, then take those things, those skills, that new knowledge, and find somewhere else to be, right? To sit for years expecting things to change. I have a mentor that says, if nothing changes, nothing changes, right? Going and getting another entry-level job is not in the long term, you're in your best interest. It's not going to be the largest value add for you or your family in the long term. You've got to ascend up that thought process ladder and think about solving higher level problems, whether for that organization, for yourself, or for another organization, for other people. There's problems all around us. I watched a company cut grass at a neighbor's house just the other day, yesterday, 2 days ago. And that guy gets, roughly whatever it is, $30 or so to cut a yard, right? However, I would argue that a similar skill set, I watched a company come in and remove a tree. Right now, a little more complexity. There's houses around. You've got to drop the tree in a very small area. The skill required, the experience required, the level of that problem is, the difficulty is a lot more challenging than running a weed eater, right? And so their time and value exchange for the time that they were involved was roughly about the same, right? But the dollars exchanged were significantly more for the person who dropped the tree than the person who ran the weed eater, right? And I know that that's a very basic, very, very basic example, but just know that, again, if nothing changes, nothing changes. I didn't mean to go super long, but I'm super, super triggered by this, and super, super triggered by the fact that going and getting another entry-level job is not going to solve the problem long term. And some have faced this up and down of this cycle over a very long period of time, 10, 12, 15 years, and they're still thinking about it the same way. So I would challenge you to think about it differently. Look for a different way to solve the problems in which you do the job today, or look at your experience, the things that you offer to the marketplace, and identify how can you bring that in a different fashion to the marketplace? How can you solve that problem for more people, maybe through a different medium? So if you have questions, don't agree, feel free, reach out, ping me. Let's have a conversation. But anyway, it's Friday. Make it a great weekend, and I love you guys. Thanks.